So there's an update in the Disney versus Ron DeSantis lawsuits. There's multiple lawsuits now. In response to Disney's maneuvering with the Reedy Creek Improvement District / Central Florida Tourism Oversight District and these covenants or contracts that were signed or agreed to before the Ron DeSantis change. In response to all of that, Ron DeSantis in Florida have now sued Walt Disney Parks and Resorts in state court, I believe. I'm not going to go over that today. Instead, we're going to go over the response to that, which is Walt Disney's updating or amending of their federal First Amendment lawsuit in the Northern District of Florida. Now, here's that amended complaint. This is going to be kind of difficult to figure out what exactly did they add. It's 84 pages. There's lots of defendants. So what I've done is run a compare report. So here we have 1,906 total changes. I can tell you from experience, a lot of these changes are going to be like formatting type changes. So some subset of 1,906 changes is going to be useful changes. And we just need to go through and page through and see what's happened. So here they added the case number, for example. We don't really care about that. Here they added First Amended Complaint. We don't care. But then we get down here to H, and there's no H in the first document, and so they added an H on page 59. Governor DeSantis and the legislature void the contracts by statute and expand the retribution campaign. So we'll definitely need to read that section. If you want to read these previous sections, my previous video will be linked below. Doesn't appear to be any change to the causes of action. In the introduction here, they've added a quote. This all started, of course, with our Parents' Rights Bill, said Governor Ronald D. DeSantis May 5th, 2023. So further linking the state action to First Amendment retaliation. And so we've read all this. We've read the introduction. We're not going to read word for word. They've added something here. The state's actions over the last 2 weeks are the latest strikes. Days later, the state legislature enacted and Governor DeSantis signed legislation rendering these contracts immediately void and unenforceable. These government actions were patently retaliatory, patently anti-business, and patently unconstitutional. We skip ahead a couple pages, and they added, indeed, just days ago, reaffirming the unequivocal intent of his retribution campaign and trumpeting its perceived success, Governor DeSantis openly celebrated, since our skirmish last year, Disney has not been involved in any of those issues. They have not made a peep. Then we skip ahead a bunch. I think all of this is going to be pretty much exactly the same, because these are all the original allegations, and Disney wanted to include these. In case you haven't noticed, all of these allegations are cited to a source. There we go, H. During the same April 17th press conference, in which he previewed the CFTOD's legislative declaration, Governor DeSantis declared that the state would act directly as well. He had worked with both leaders of the House and the Senate on a bill that would be put out in the Florida legislature that will make sure that the contracts are revoked. Senator Blaise Ingoglia also spoke. He threatened, I know this governor, and I know this governor well, so I have a couple of words for Disney. You are not going to win this fight. The governor will. The next day, Senator Ingoglia delivered Governor DeSantis' promised legislation, an amendment to Senate Bill 1604 that voided the contracts. As emphasized by the statements of the governor and his allies, the amendment was drafted to target the contract specifically, and only the contracts. It states, an independent special district is precluded from complying with the terms of any development agreement or any other agreement for which the development agreement serves in whole or in part as consideration, which is executed within 3 months preceding the effective date of a law modifying the manner of selecting members of the governing body of the independent special district from election to appointment or from appointment to election. Thus, under the legislation, the contracts are immediately void and unenforceable, though CFTOD is ostensibly empowered to readopt them within 4 months of taking office. underscoring the state's coordinated efforts in its legislative declaration executed the following week. CFTOD stated, "The board has no desire to readopt or ratify the contracts." Senator Ingoglia called the amendment to Senate Bill 1604 a reversion of the contracts, which he said RCID and Disney put in place at the last second. Representative Stan McLean introduced an identical amendment the same day, though the House bill was later tabled in favor of Senate Bill 1604. In discussions about his amendment to House Bill 439, Representative McLean remarked, "When problems arise, we fix them." During the Florida House's May 3rd floor session, multiple House members explicitly tied Senate Bill 1604 to the contracts. Representative Toby Overdorf stated, "Disney chose to break the law, and now we have to come back and rewrite it one more time so that other special districts don't follow that bad example." Likewise, Representative William Robinson, Jr., speaking in favor of the bill, stated, "Two of my most terrifying words are lame duck." And that's really what we're dealing with right here. A lame duck board that is saddling a new board with obligations. This development agreement has saddled the new board with obligations that the old board in a lame duck session was doing. By May 4th, both the Senate and the House had passed Senate Bill 1604. 1 day later, May 5th, Governor DeSantis signed the bill into law. DeSantis and his allies have no apparent intent to moderate their retaliatory campaign anytime soon. Again, at the same April 17th press conference, Governor DeSantis announced ongoing efforts to give the state new authority to override safety inspections at Walt Disney World, as well as to regulate Disney's monorail transportation systems. Previewing the monorail legislation, Governor DeSantis falsely accused Disney of exempting the monorail from any safety standards or inspections. Like clockwork, 1 week later, Senator Nick DeCeglie introduced the monorail legislation as an announcement to a Senate transportation bill. In what has now become a familiar practice, the proposed amendment was precision engineered to target Disney alone, just as Governor DeSantis intended and previewed, imposing state oversight over only those private monorail systems located within an independent special district created by a local act, which have boundaries within 2 contiguous counties. Disney is the only company affected by House Bill 1305. Underscoring the point, Senator Geraldine Thompson warned that House Bill 1305 reeks of retribution. On May 2nd, the Senate passed House Bill 1305. The House passed the bill as amended the next day. On May 5th, at a press conference commemorating the end of the Florida legislative session, Governor DeSantis was asked about his handling of Reedy Creek. Without hesitation or prompt, Governor DeSantis admitted, "This all started, of course, with our Parents' Rights Bill." In a separate interview that same day, Governor DeSantis trumpeted the unequivocal intent and perceived success of his retribution campaign. Since our skirmish last year, Disney has not been involved in any of those issues. They have not made a peep. That, ultimately, is the most important, that Disney is not allowed to pervert the system to the detriment of Floridians. Having exhausted all other options, Disney is left with no choice but to bring this complaint, etc. Now, I don't think there's any change to the causes of action, so we can stop there. That's what Disney has filed now to counter what DeSantis has done in the meantime. The voiding of the contracts and the regulation of the monorail targeted just at Disney. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Is this how a state should regulate the free market? Is this how a conservative governor should be small government and hands off and all that? What do you think's going on here? I think I have some pretty good ideas, but I'd like to hear from you. And what do you think of the lawsuit? Who do you think's going to win? I'm not a huge fan of Disney, but I seem to think that Disney is, they've got the upper hand here. It's a First Amendment lawsuit, and you've got lots of evidence of First Amendment retaliation. It seems to be an overwhelming amount of First Amendment retaliation, of evidence of First Amendment retaliation. So anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below.